Are you having a good time? Good.
Check.
All right, so we put together a dynamite panel for you to talk about how the 800 million odd mobile users, mobile consumers is creating a fabulous opportunity both for the hardware manufacturing as well as the software ecosystem to go after. And we believe at NASSCOM that we've never had this opportunity in the last 25 years. We've never had a big domestic. Start off the music. Thank you. This is for the first time in the last 25 years that we actually have one of the largest domestic markets. And we believe that that gives us the platform to not only dominate India, but also dominate the globe at some point in time. So let me quickly start and introduce you our moderator, extremely distinguished gentleman, Mohan Kumar. Used to head Motorola for a long time in India, very, very senior VC, has extremely good insight into what's happening in China, in Europe, in Canada, US, as well as in India. Mohan, please.
Let me just introduce my panel members. We have an interesting diversified background. Okay, we have a mobile phone manufacturer, Vishal, is the founder. Right, why don't you come on board? Vishal is the co-founder of Lava, and he spends a lot of time on trying to see what products to design. So he's got a lot of consumer insights, focus on consumer insights, Lava. So he will talk a lot about it. Then you have Dinesh. Dinesh is from Qualcomm, and he drives strategy, sales, marketing for Qualcomm, and he's very well exposed to the ecosystem, both chip, hardware, what it takes to manufacture. Okay. It's one part of the big ecosystem. Then we have Ashish. He's a very interesting player. He's trying to develop consumer products, not mobiles, and he's carrying one of them in his hand. It's guess what it is? Okay. It's not a light. It's not a coffee mug. It's a speaker. So he's trying to do that out of India. So you will hear from him on what it takes to build products like that here. Okay. Then we have Harish. Harish is an entrepreneur. He's founder of a company called Borgs. Borgs makes smartphones, and we are an investor in their company. So let me just go there and continue. Can it create an ecosystem in India? It may mean different things to different people, right? What you're going to discuss here is, okay, can this create companies which are of global standards, okay? If you look at across the world, what happened, right? Different parts of time, different countries have thrown out multinationals, okay? Sony was created in Japan, you have Samsung and LG in Korea, we have a lot of manufacturing companies in China, and before that, branded companies in Europe and US, right? All this happened when there is a big transition, okay? When there is a big change in the thinking of the people. Today, what we see is in India, there is such an opportunity, right? Before there was no such opportunity to cater to the local market. There are 800 million mobile users today, and that's not the end of it. What we see is a trend in digitization. Okay? When I say digitization, it means moving everything to digital, whether it's set-top box, digital TV, digital commerce. Okay? So you see a lot of digital wave happening. Okay? And if there are 1 billion people, what can you serve to them? Okay? You can serve many things. You can serve as part of the ecosystem. You can create a branded player like Lava. Can they become a global player in India? You can create software companies. You see a lot of e-commerce coming up. You have a lot of software play. There will be a different kind of companies come in the Indian market. Can they dominate globally? Okay? That's the next question. Okay? Then we have, as part of the ecosystem, product design companies. Okay? You need, because if you want to be successful, you have to be entire supply chain. Brands, products, good product capability, good software capability, good manufacturing and chip. Okay, you have to put together, you have the entire ecosystem. So Dinesh will talk about what it will take to create a world-class ecosystem in India. Okay, will it happen? Okay, should it happen? Okay, I mean there's no need for manufacturing to be there. Okay, but you can debate about that. Okay, then Ashish will talk about the next new supply chain. Where is the product design in India is heading? Okay, can you create world-class products here? Okay, and if we can achieve in each one of the areas, because the demand is there, the market is there, but will the companies emerge out of here, okay? And there has been false starts, okay, before, okay? If you look at TV and audio was there before, there were companies created in India, there were brands. You don't see them now, okay? You see LG and Samsung dominating, okay? The brands have gone away. Will the same story repeat in the new digitization way, okay? These are the questions which we will debate about it. We welcome audience to join, okay? But before that, what I'll do is I'll start with most important, right? It's consumers, okay? At the end of the day, consumers are most important. I'd like to ask Vishal, when he's doing Lava design, what does the consumer want? What do they think? Is there a brand? Is it value for money? Price? So let's hear from him, Vishal.
Okay, thanks, Mohan. Thanks a lot, and I think it's an absolute pleasure being here. And I think that this topic that we touched upon is something with, in our understanding, will give an opportunity in India to do something which we've never done before, which is create our own Indian brands, so to say. I mean, if you look around, whether it's mobiles, whether it is FMCG products, there hardly are any really Indian brands, actually. So to me, I think as an Indian and as a person who's been born and brought up in this ecosystem, I think this is the age and time when we have the opportunity to create Indian brands. Now, creating Indian brands, in our understanding, when we started off 2 years back, when I started off as an entrepreneur first time, is a task which requires a set of things. See, what's really happening in India, in our understanding? First, we are essentially a consumption story. Unlike many other countries which have grown economically, India's growth economically has been out of consumption. And if there is going to be consumption here, necessarily as time goes by, production also has to happen here in due course of time. Now, with production, customers will get choices. With choices, there will be confusion. And when there is confusion, there is need for trust. And that is where brands come in our understanding. Brands essentially step forward and provide consumers something that they can trust, so to say. And when we looked at the space in our industry, we found that to build a strong consumer brand, we will have to start influencing customer experiences. And brands are nothing but accumulation of all these experiences put together. And that's what started us off. And I will, as time goes by, maybe if I get time, I'll try and explain how at Lava we figured out what are the experiences we need to watch for, and what do we need to do to be able to ensure that we become a credible Indian brand. But this space excites us a lot. 800 million users, this is one space which is our mobile space, but you could look at other spaces, you could look at education space, you could look at other spaces, and you would find that opportunity to build brand in India is actually very deep and very much there, actually. In fact, Indian companies will start off with a certain head start because they understand Indian psyche, they understand Indian culture, they understand the need for value for money far more than many of the companies which come from outside India and step in and try and create value in this space. So I think as we go along, at least I'll try and share our experiences at Lava on what all we did to ensure that we address our customers' needs, our small segment, our slice. Well, how do we address that in a passionate way? How do we address that in an excellent way and create certain stronger equity in a small slice of customers? So I think maybe we'll take you through that as time goes by.
Thanks, Vishal. I have a question for you. Do you think, based on your experience, right, if you want to create a brand, you said value for money is important in Indian context. Do you start from there and slowly get your market share and build a brand? Where do you start? Okay, how do you start?
No, you always start from who you want to address. So the first job of a marketeer, I mean that's true when we started Lava. It's true in my earlier professional avatar. It is to understand who you really want to address, and I think Indian companies will do well not to try and address everybody. I think that's actually even by the grain of consumer marketing. There's no consumer marketing in trying to address everybody. So the first job is to understand your customer. And once you understand your customer, you will go about figuring out what all does he need. And then there are certain touch points you will identify which require excellent execution. For example, if I look at Lava, I will look at the mobile space. We identified the 4 critical experiences which we go about trying to excel in step by step as maybe 2 years back when we started, if I were 5 on 10, maybe today we are 7 on 10 or 8 on 10 on each one of these experiences. These 4 experiences for us are the first experience and the foremost experience in the mobile devices segment is the product experience per se. So when a customer touches a product, when he uses the product, whether he's interacting with the look and feel of the product per se, the ID, or whether he's interacting with the graphic user interface or the entire user experience, that piece is more than half of brand per se within our space. The second experience is the retail experience, which we learned as we went along. Luckily, we have a lot of competencies within our organization to address that. Is that when he buys and he gets exposed to a certain set of experiences on your brand at the time when he's buying. So excelling in the retail experience space is an important space. Now, the retail experience per se is getting diverser, it's getting more complex. So not only do you have a traditional channel, you have now modern channels, you have the non-physical channel, the e-retailing channel. So many channels are emerging, but all of them the brand will have to ensure that every one of those experiences and those retail touch points work for their brand, in their space, for their customers. The third experience that we work on, which we try to sort of excel, and obviously the communication experience everybody is sort of aware of. Typically most people consider brand building to be communication or imagery building, but in our space it's only the third most important possibly space, and that's easier done. That the ecosystem is well developed. You have very good agencies. Consumer market communication and imagery building in India has been done for a long period of time. I mean, the FMCG people have done it, the durables have done it, but easier thing to be done. And then another thing which is very critical, the fourth experience, very critical for devices is the fact that there is a promise behind the buy, which is a promise of quality. And if the quality fails, then there's a service experience which goes behind it. So building a correct go-to-market for delivering service, post-sale service is another experience that we understand as critical. So I think every industry, I mean, we are in the mobile space, Ashish is in the music space, and the other segments. They will have to learn to go about understanding how consumers touch their brand, where all they touch their brand, and then going about perfecting those experiences is the way we understand brand building to be.
Thanks. So next what we'll do is we'll go to, once we heard from Shal how we can build a brand, what are the challenges there, right? Next is, if you look at the ecosystem, I just want to quote here, right? If you look at what happened in the mobile space, there are globally 1.2 billion mobile phones sold in the world, out of which Apple has got 4%, okay? And 60% of the profit goes to Apple, okay? That means the remaining 40% of the profit. Finally, you have to have economic value add, right? You can run a company for employment, or you can run a company for profit. And if you use profit as a motive, 4% of ownership, mobile ownership in the world drives 60% of the profit. And the remaining 40% is captured by 3 companies. Samsung has got 15, HTC is 11, and RIM is about 19, okay? So the rest are making loss, okay? And if you look at the employment created by the remaining 96%, is like 10 times what Apple has, okay? So with that, and that's basically design of products, right? What consumer wants, and that's why they're able to drive the profit. If you look 4 years back, Nokia was in the same boat. Nokia had 56% of the profit and 40% market share, okay? Time has changed. So I'd like to get Asish's view. What he's trying to do is develop music products out of India, and not mobiles, not TVs, music, okay? And I'd like to hear from him on the challenges on what it takes to build world-class product here. Do we have it here? What are the challenges, etc., okay? Switch to you here.
Hello, yeah. Hello. Yeah. Thanks, Mohan. This is a speaker that we have made in the past 3 years. It's the first time in the world, okay, that you can create a home theater right in any space by plugging in.
Maybe.
Okay. Thank you. I just need my speaker to play, then I don't need a mic. See, this is the product we have created. We are a 3-year young startup, And it's a first time in the world, and enough people have confirmed that this is the only product of its kind in the world. It creates a home theater right in any space without any preconditions. This speaker has no knobs, no buttons, no wires. You can simply plug it into a light bulb socket. Okay. We came with this vision in India 3 years ago when everybody said this product wasn't possible, R&D wasn't possible in India, and creating a brand in India wasn't possible in consumer electronic space by a startup. Okay. So what I want to say is that in this journey of last 3 years, I've seen some very interesting things happening in the space in India. And Mohan touched on this when he started his talk, and he said that a lot of things happen when there's a non-linear shift in the whole ecosystem. And then the topic was also how can India, because of its ecosystem, cater to not only India but to the world. So I'm very sure that the other panelists will talk about how to create a brand out of India and what ecosystem challenges happen in India. What I see fundamentally as an opportunity more than a challenge is that there is a lateral shift. Like I stay in California, so there's a shift in the plates and there's the ground is shaking. And that shaking creates new opportunities while destroying some old houses. But that new opportunity is as follows. If I had to design this product in my old company where I was heading the R&D as a director, it would have costed me, I would estimate, over $4 million, $4 to $5 million. I have done this product in India with a team today that is 50 people with an average age of 25 at 1/10 of the cost. Okay. This is an opportunity that the ecosystem allows us. How do we So the question really in front of us is, how do we effectively utilize this ecosystem that has created, and the focus of the world now looks at China and India, where almost 1/3 or close to 2/3 of the population resides. And so as both of these countries grow not only in their consumption, but also in their ability to provide rich ecosystem variables, and there are lots of challenges. We can go over and over on challenges in manufacturing, in product design. It took us almost 1 year to get this shape right and find a manufacturer who could do this shape. So of course there are a lot of challenges in, and things like the guy would tell me, but sir, electricity चले जाता है, तो जब मशीन में चालू करेगा, तो same जगह से नहीं चालू होता है, इसलिए थोड़ा shape different आता है. How do you answer that? Yeah? Those are the real challenges. But then on the flip side, when you are able to, and that guy would work day and night to prove it to you that he can do it. And I haven't seen that kind of zeal coming out of some of the other countries. So what we have here today is a very rich ability to design world-class products. And this is what I believe is for us a fundamental basis of creating a brand. What is a brand? As Vishal said, there are a few things that the consumer feels. Mohan said just an hour ago, Apple never produces any of its products, yet it's known as the world's leading brand today. And who could have imagined that Apple would take the music industry by surprise when Sony ruled your pocket music for so many years? Okay. So for us, very important in the ecosystem is the product itself. What is the product? What is the fundamental value that we bring it, and how do we bring it to the consumers in India and also worldwide? The other thing that I wanted to touch upon is the ecosystem also allows us, because of the density of population, the large number of people, allows us to organize product development on scale. Okay. In the past, product developments have typically been part of companies. But if you look at it, when the cost of product development overrides the profits that it can make, and very few companies can make profits out of their own indigenous product development.
Marry it with what Ashish is doing, designing great products, I think you have two sides of the story, right? You need a great brand, back it up with great promise of the brand, which is a good product design. Now, let me go to the other part of the ecosystem. There are lots more. I'll throw up questions to all of you. Here is, one part of the ecosystem for manufacturing to work, product to work. You design product, what do you do next, okay? Can it be manufactured in India at good quality? Do you have the supply chain to manufacture it on time? Is it cost effective? Is the labor cost conscious? Okay, so there are multiple things in the later part of the supply chain and the ecosystem. And I would get Dinesh, who has spent a lot of time in Qualcomm, and he spent a lot of time in India, China. He's very knowledgeable on the chipset side, manufacturing side. I'd like to get his view on that, okay? So, Dinesh. Yeah.
Thanks, Mohan. So I'll just pick up the clue from Vishal, who talked about the consumer requirements, because that's the key at the end of the day, because we're trying to address the consumer aspiration. Now, the key question here becomes like, can India continue addressing this consumer market by getting the products from the global space and just trying to address the mass market space? We can continue feeding this India consumer base, the top 10, 15% of that with the high-end premium products coming in from the well-established brands like Apple or from Samsung and or Nokia. But what we're talking about is a large base sitting which can afford, if you take a particular example of smartphone or handsets, almost 90% of the consumers today procure handsets which are under $100 retail price point. And the key question would be now with 3G and 4G in this market, how do you address that space? So that's the key question I'm trying to kind of bring forward, and with a certain aspiration that the consumer has. So no consumer wants to compromise on the value or the experience that he is looking forward to. So let's take a step back and try and analyze the situation in India. And there are three fundamental issues that we are grappling at this point, because 3G is like 5 years delayed in India, and 4G is kind of coming up. So it's no issue with the 4G, but we still have an issue with the affordability versus what the product pricing would be. So that's one area. The second area is with this whole smartphone, which is becoming a key factor of consumer aspiration to use 3G and drive internet experience. And that's what the country needs, because this country has just about 100 million internet users today. Now, third is the per capita income of India, which is like 1/3 of what the China is, which is the largest supplier of electronics worldwide, and it's kind of feeding to the India market to a large extent. So these are like some of the very hard facts in the market. And fourth is obviously, this is a fact that smartphone is becoming a mainstream requirement for consumers in India. And there are challenges with the Google and China relationships. So I'm just trying to lay some foundation so that you get a grasp of why the ecosystem is becoming more and more critical today with the 800 million subscribers that we have, which will be graduating from the classic 2G low-end feature phone and gradually moving on to the smartphone and tablets. So this becomes a prerequisite kind of a thing. Now take this, like there are 4 or 5 key elements in an ecosystem. So you got a software developer ecosystem, which is extremely strong in India, but largely feeding for the global app development requirements. That's one piece. The second is the design ecosystem, which is very fragmented, very limited at this point of time, but it's kind of picking up. And third is the hardware or the manufacturing ecosystem, which is also a little bit of constraint because of the policies, but that's going to pick up, like we are all debating out here. Now, so these are the areas which all of us are kind of debating at this point to address that. And in India, as like Qualcomm or the other companies, at least I can speak on behalf of Qualcomm, that we have several solutions that we are floating in this market to address these requirements. Because most of the smartphones that come from India have to be completely redone because of the Google issues. So you got to redone the UI, and you can redo the whole application space. So we got this whole reference design program, which we call as Qualcomm reference design program, which we're kind of actively engaging with the ecosystem in India. And this is a kind of a completely done-up device. It's a smartphone, a 3.5, which is targeted and developed for emerging markets and to address the certain price points which the mass market consumers can take it. So this is the space that, and this is completely done up, so it kind of gives a huge kickstart for small startups who has like 25, 30, or 50 odd people who gets the complete design to move it forward. So that's the hardware design aspect. Then what we are also trying to do is we're trying to offer mobile development platforms we call MDPs, which is both on smartphone and tablets, where the development of applications can be done, the high-end applications can be done on these devices, which can be then ported on affordable devices. So you've got a development platform for the ecosystem. The third big area that we are focusing, or that I see relevance is on augmented reality, which is still seen as a space which is for the $400 plus segment. We're trying to pull this down and address this whole space in India, which is extremely, extremely critical. And we feel that augmented reality could really bridge a lot of issues of literacy, language barrier, and the space around it. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with augmented reality, and there was a conference last week with the Mobile Developer Conference, and a lot of people were participating in that. And I understand that 20% of AR development is happening currently in India. So these are like a good space to for this community sitting here to engage with and kind of address some of the ecosystem requirements. Then we're also seeing like system integrators, like we're seeing a lot of system integrators, a lot of design houses who are moving into a turnkey solution offering. So there is a lot of pieces moving in this whole country, which will address this ecosystem challenge that Mohan you talked about, and we can discuss this much further as we move on for that.
Thanks. I think here I wanted to give a small transition which happened. If you look at 10 years back, right, the world global networks, okay, if you look at who's designing the telecom networks, it was Alcatel, Motorola, Lucent, Nortel, Nokia, Siemens, and Ericsson's. Today they don't exist. Okay? Ericsson exists, the only one which exists, but they exist as a service company, okay? Not as a product company. So what you saw is these guys were designing products for the market 20 years back when Europe and US was developing the wireless network. The cost was like $120, okay? If you want to, I mean, all of you have mobile, right? But if you want the capital investment at the back end to put all the networks, towers, everything to reach out to consumers, it used to call $120 per line, okay? Huawei and ZTE came in and did it at $15, okay? So that drove the numbers here, but what happened, it killed all the other players, okay? So it's a clear case where about 7, 8 global companies with multi-billion-dollar cap got overnight toppled by 2 players, okay? And that was because China was putting up the network, okay? Unfortunately, that transition, when China built up the network, when India built the network, we found same Huawei and ZTE are selling everything here. There's no Indian company which has come and filled the gap, okay? So that's some thought, okay? How, when a transition time, you can actually make use of the opportunity and take gains and then dislodge them, okay? So with that, I'd like to go on one more part of the ecosystem, which is, we talked about brand, we talked about product design, we talked about manufacturing and chips. And software, India, that's a strength, right? And mobile ecosystem, whether it's mobile, I call it the digitization wave, not just mobile, okay? It's set-top box going digital, you're going to have tablets being proliferating, you have a lot of things which is going online, whether it's digital commerce or music or video. And all this is driven by software, okay? India's strength is software. So I'd like Harish to talk about, Harish is a founder of Borgs, okay, which is a smartphone software company, predominantly software. What does he think about the ecosystem? Do you think world-class companies will be created, okay? Both in the consumer and in the enterprise space, good app stores, great apps. What does he think about it, okay? Harish, why don't you share your thoughts?
Thanks, Mohan. In India, we all believe that we all know software, right? So, but are we able to create a product? Are we able to create a Facebook? Are we able to create a Twitter, right? Or as simple as the games. Yes, there are companies who have started doing it, but it's minuscule. And my colleague here talked about system integrator. In my past company, we've been able to trying to say that we want to create a complete product. India is known for its services, but can we take up the challenge of right from the requirements, defining our own requirements, and take it to the product that is provided to the customer. The customer is not the one, the arm of MNC which is there in the US or somewhere else. It is you who go directly interact with, be it an operator who is the end customer or the end customer itself, right? Like Lava, if he's able to establish a distributor network and feeds into the target segments like what Vishal was telling, do you know what the target segment wants it? Do you know what the requirements are from that target segment? So briefly, when we came out of my past company, I had the vision of creating a system integrator and creating a software product in our own company. And that fitted very well in the ecosystem which has started developing in the mobile world. India was a pioneer in creating, today we have got more than 10 million phones per month, which is being sold, but they're all the feature phones, right? Now we are seeing an era where I would like to call it as, here people refer to as smartphones, but in India probably we need smart feature phones. So what are those smart feature phones are, right? So can we capitalize on the ecosystem which India has in terms of the software developers, allow the application developers to develop applications needed for the target segment, right? So that is one ecosystem which, which needs to be evolved. And then when brands like Lava, Micromax, and all these brands create the products, do they have sufficient wherewithal? Do they have sufficient software engineering resources to create that brand, to create that signature experience going forward? Today, what we see is when we're talking of smartphones, the Samsungs of the world, the HTCs of the world, they take priority because we are still not able to create that brand like what we have created in the feature phones. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? So is there something which we can drive? Because going forward, when we have this application, huge number of application developers which we can enable, and they are able to develop applications, we should be able to leverage that and either do a preload or be able to download from a store. So today, if you look at it, we have, we are all knowledgeable about cloud. We know what Google Cloud is. Apart from the phones which we get from multinationals, most of the Indian brands are not able to access the Google Cloud. But Google Cloud, in the last session, someone was talking about discovery. How many Indian applications are targeted applications needed? If the Indian consumer wants to download an application, can we get that from the Google Cloud? Is there some separate set of applications which we need to develop? So there is some movement by the operators and by the Indian OEMs, and which needs to develop as we go along to create that app store or create that local cloud. Because India is still an open market, it's not an operator controlled market. Operator controlled market will come, but then it may not be ruling. So we'll have both the markets, both the operator controlled and as well as the open market. But identifying the applications and creating that applications for the target segment is very important, right? So what we have is, if we are able to get the hardware, and companies like us who are little startup, small companies, we are now able to do a complete system integration, right from requirements to product delivery. Right, so we know what the operators want. It's not just the Indian operators, but global operators. We are able to develop and produce a complete software product and deliver the phone, working closely with the hardware manufacturers. Right, so the hardware manufacturers typically are from China, Taiwan, and Korea. But what we get is a pure hardware, but we end up doing the entire software, integrate it, and then deliver it to the end customer. So some of these things have started developing, but I think more such companies like system integrators has to start. OEMs have to invest in software engineering resources and also be able to create app stores, be it the chipset companies create those app stores or the OEMs create the app stores, or we can have various flavors, especially when we are talking of vertical segments. One of the panel members talked about education, medical. Those are vertical segments needs a lot of attention, and how can we make them mobile? How can we allow those applications to be able to access in the mobile? In the previous discussions, people talked about online shopping. So those things will evolve definitely, and we need to enable those applications in the mobile. So I think the stage is set, especially when we have the smart OS. And in this session, I think we also probably will talk about, the smart OS is not necessarily for the mobile world. It can also move on to the set-top boxes, and how does one work across these various consumer devices. So that would be the interesting thought process, and the market is opening up for those opportunities.
Let me just take, I think what Harish raised is only very important, but we in our own entrepreneurial journey face that in a very real way, in our life. And that's this entire, dichotomy between, not a dichotomy, but maybe entire balance between the inability of third-party, non-Indian organizations to fully appreciate the requirement of Indian customers on the one hand, and the other side is our inability or lack of competence to be able to build products end-to-end. And we actually face this in a very real way. When we started our journey in Lava around two odd years back, we thought that this product experience part of it we'll essentially partner for. We will not build that as a core in-house capability, but we'll actually partner it. We'll work with, we'll form strategic partnerships with certain other organizations, and essentially for our business there were essentially two large areas of partnership required. One is the design partnership, where the core design of the phone, both hardware and software perspective, and the other is obviously the entire manufacturing side or assembly side of the device. So we started like that. But then as we went along, we figured out that that was becoming a very serious impediment in building brand, and essentially from a product experience perspective. And then a year into our journey, we figured out that there is no way we will be able to really speaking be a credible brand till we actually start owning the product experience more in-house. And that's when we then took a decision to do our own design house. In fact, we are possibly the only Indian brand to have an in-house design house now. But along the way, we face all the problems that Harish mentioned. That while we have the intentions, while we have the customers there, while we have the demand, but we still do not have the competence to be able to do an end-to-end design, and therefore, but having said that, I think the struggle has to happen. Whether it happens today or whether it happens 5 years later, we have to start somewhere. And I think 1 year into having our own design house, we are now far more confident. We are designing our own products. In hardware part, we have far more confidence in, but software element also we are developing more and more confidence. In fact, our software center for design actually sits here in Bangalore. But yeah, this is an absolutely, I think, a real world issue that I think you spoke about.
I think another thing you need is capital, right? Because once you have all the ideas and passion there, you need capital to do that. Okay? I think in India what we see is, I come from the VC ecosystem, there is a lot of capital available for, if people have the right idea, capital is there. That's a good news. And what we see is a trend where you pick up, let's say, mobile ecosystem, right? There are 150 million smartphones being sold. What can you do there, which can create either a brand, create a product company or a software company here, there is capital available, okay? So, and people are willing to commit a large amount of capital. And it's not just in mobile we are seeing that in healthcare, okay? Same thing where the affordability of healthcare in India is very large. You need right from x-rays down to fundoscope where you test your eye. These are all expensive pieces, okay? And they are manufactured by a few global players. So there is a lot of opportunity there where the Indian masses get more educated, more the quality of life improve, whether it's digitization or healthcare. there is a lot of opportunity for redesigning the equipment to the needs. Okay? It's not just the fee, it's not the price point. It's what features. Is it ruggedized? Does it take care of the power needs in the Indian market? Okay? So there is a lot of opportunity where you can take every length and there is money available. Okay? That's important for all of you who are entrepreneurs. There is that. I think only thing you have to put your mind to it. Okay? You have to put your mind to it and go after it religiously. Then you'll get that. I'll just probe. Okay? I think the basic thing here is to have a debate. Okay? You can all argue, should we need the entire ecosystem? Do we need a brand? Do we need product design? Do we need manufacturing? Do we need software? Okay? You can argue. Okay? So there is a lot of views there. I think I would just open it up for panel members and you, all of you. But I just want to provoke one question to Vishal to start with is, earlier you had a lot of TV brands. Okay? They don't exist now. Audio brands don't exist. Why shouldn't the mobile go the same way?
No, I don't think. I think that's the law of evolution. I think mobiles will go the same way. Not everybody will survive. I think there's no question in our mind about that. But I think what will be left behind will be companies which will genuinely learn how to address customer expectations. There will be strong brands left behind. There might be a few, but they will be the first real Indian brands. So to my mind, I think we are living in a wonderful age in India. We have a set of relatively forgiving customers today. They will not be forgiving in due course, maybe a year, 2 years down the line. They will get very, very discerning. They will get very, very demanding. But that will also force people who are on the delivery side to deliver better and deliver more excellently, deliver more perfectly, and therefore create brands. And we will enjoy this journey. We are enjoying this journey as we go along. We were lucky to be, I think, among the earlier entrants. To that extent, we had maybe we got far more, maybe far too early. But as long as we keep investing what we got back into the ecosystem to be able to develop, an ability, an in-house ability. You raised the issue about should we need manufacturing? I think it is natural that in due course of time, it could take, I don't know how many years it will take, a lot depends on government policy, but it's only natural that manufacturing will finally land up where things are getting consumed. So I have no doubt that it's just a matter of time. I mean, it could happen 2 years later, there will be definitely a Foxconn in India. There will be a BYD in maybe Bangalore here, or maybe in Chennai, I don't know where it will be. But this will happen. There's no question about that. If consumption is happening here, finally production has to happen here. That has been the worldwide learning. It could be a little bit of a macro trend. I mean, it might take some time, but it will finally get back here.
I would say, Mohan, just to pick on that point on what happened in the consumer electronics, why would it not chase on mobile? I would say mobile is a more personal kind of a product. It's not a very generic consuming device. So it's very personalized, it's very close to consumer. And every consumer has a certain aspiration or a requirement, which is not like the mass market addressable product. So I think the economy of scale does play in when you have a standard product being kicked into the global space, which is what happened to the television industry, where panels became cheaper, integration became cheaper, and then probably the economics didn't work out. But like simple examples like tablets, if you take this tablet space, it is going to be something very different what India could be than what the globe is. Prima facie evidence are there that only Apple and Samsung has some significant share in the tablet, and that in the premium segment. But if you leave the mass market segment, we are seeing some spurts happening in this India market. And this is primarily because India will be one of these challenged emerging markets where broadband will be addressed only through wireless. Unlike what we had this Akash thing on the board as a prize. These kind of tablets used to exist in China for the last 3-4 years. There's nothing new about it. It's just that this never took off in China because there was no need for that kind of a compromise solution at affordable pricing. But if you look at India market, there is enough need for consumers who are looking at source of consuming data, and they need devices to consume data, and those differentiation will keep this whole space alive for a long, long time.
In fact, I want to address this question in a little bit of a different way. I think you asked the question of survival. There's a a very interesting quote that one of my friends told me. He said, "Yeah, you are in a great space, meaning apart from all the hardships that we face." I said, "Why?" He says, "You know, history shows us that a product, a company, a space may not survive, but the creators always survive." Okay. So the key question, the question you asked is a point in space, in time, right? But the question to ask larger is that, are we going to build and are we going to be the vehicles of this ecosystem that can continually morph? And there'll be a few players that would reign and would take that space, but then the other guys would leapfrog. Qualcomm has done this, Apple has done this, and repeatedly companies, and Mohan, you said there were companies 10 years ago, now Huawei and ZTE take over. So why shouldn't we invest our energy and focus into spaces to create an ecosystem in first place and worry about whether that point in time is going to be our survival or not? So I think that's a fundamental thing that we got to look at.
Maybe we should throw questions for our audience.
I have two questions. One is about Lava. So basically, on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you think Lava is at this point of time? And basically, what more needs to be done to make it still better? And the second question that I have is, when do you see a situation happening in India wherein someone takes a plan for a cell phone, and basically gets a smartphone free, instead of having to pay for a smartphone?
I didn't understand the second part. Can you
So the second part is basically, when do you see a situation happening in India wherein a person buys a cell phone plan and gets a smartphone free, and he doesn't have to kind of pay for that?
Okay, so I'll try and address the first one very quickly. So at Lava, as I told you, we measure ourselves, we are structured, from an execution standpoint, we've structured ourselves in addressing those 4 experiences I spoke about. And our entire organization is structured like that. And in different experiences, we are at different stages of evolution. The most important space in our understanding is the product space. And that's where we measure ourselves the most deeply, and that's where our maximum investments are flowing in. I think in that space, we are at a very, very early stage. I think if we're lucky and if we're very fast and we keep having the faith, I think it will take us at least a year and a half to be able to develop completely indigenous products which are not only indigenous but also absolutely relevant to Indian customers, the way we understand the customer need and our customer need, so to say. But we've done extremely well on distribution. I mean, the retail experience part we do far better off on, and I think that's the place where we are much further up the evolutionary cycle. So I think we've sort of realized as we went along that I think you might as well enjoy the journey. Enjoying the journey is far more critical. No need to get too worried about where you'll end up, but nobody knows that. The question that Mohan raised as survival is a 100% question to every single brand in our space. Every single brand in our space. By the way, this includes the Nokia and the Apples, not only the Indian brands. Nokia went into a stage where it nearly wiped out, so to say. Now they're trying to do something to Apple. There is no guarantee that Apple will not fall into trouble. BlackBerry, serious trouble. Considered to be an impregnable brand 2 years, 3 years back. So I think there's a certain iconoclastic nature of brands. I think whatever goes up can get destroyed, will get destroyed unless people who are influencing brand are continuously willing to reinvent themselves, continuously willing to adapt. Now the second question about smartphones you asked, is that right? You asked about smartphones, when we'll have an indigenously designed smartphone?
No, I think he's asking about contract-linked sales, operator procured and
I see. Okay, that
kind of a thing. So,
I have my own personal belief that Indian markets will remain open market. This is my own personal belief, could be absolutely wrong. I think this operator business has only one value that is brought on table, and that is that the operators have also invested in the upfront cost of the device. That's the only thing that has been brought on table by the operator-driven market. Very, very popular in countries where the legal infrastructure is very strong, where a contract means a contract, And if you pay $100 upfront, the balance $300 has to come in and will come in. In countries like India, where legal infrastructure or going legal or trying to enforce a contract is not only costly but fraught with a lot of ifs and buts, I think that may not be the way things will happen. That's one part with infrastructural problem. The other part is, I don't think Indians need a subsidy either. We have the money. The way consumption has grown in India in the last decade or so has proven that in India there is no dearth of, if you have the right product, if you have value for money behind it, people will find the money. And our sheer scale is our strength. So I don't foresee a need for the operator business to really becoming the primary source of the way mobiles will be sold. But yeah, we will remain adaptable. At least internally, we're very clear. We have we have an operator management part of our business, our frontline too, which we work on. But my personal opinion is, I think open market is the way it will go. It's safe for the operators, safe for the device guys, and I think also finally good for the customer in the long run.
Yeah, but just to add, Vishal, so very fair point. So I think, but there is a trend which is a little bit kind of being experimented, at least by the market dynamics of multiple operator scenarios, right? So you might have seen hoardings around from MTS, and you may soon see from a couple of more operators who are more in the we qualify as incumbents versus challenger kind of a space, right? So these are some of the tricks which will be played, but there is a fundamental issue of credit worthiness in this whole ecosystem that we live in. So unless that gets fixed with the increasing credit card penetration in this country, is going to be a limiting factor for some time.
Even in India, the smartphone market, that won't be any time bigger than the feature phone market, right? So there would be a need for apps like as a mobile application development company, many of the customers, they are coming to us like, make a software which runs on all the phones, right? So basically like we have to say no, because there is no API or that sort of ecosystem exists where you can develop an application for Indian companies. Forget about Chinese companies, but at least for Indian companies. So like what is a roadmap or like you have in mind for Indian developers?
I think that's an absolutely valid point. I think we are acutely aware that our journey of designing phones ourselves is not even half complete unless we engage the core strength of India, which is the developer ecosystem. And we are very young to do a full-blown exercise or initiative around it. But very shortly, in fact, Arvind is here, he's a member on the board. We are looking at finding meaningful ways in which we can develop a relationship between what our brand wants to stand for, what customers require from, or Lava type of customers require from our brand from an application standpoint. And then also the other side of the partnership is what sort of competence exists in the country already to develop that. So I think the reason why we opened the Bangalore office essentially was to ensure that we have a certain center or nucleus which can allow us to leverage that thing forward. So I think in short, due course, maybe a couple of quarters, you will start seeing far more action from Lava in terms of engaging proactively with this side, with this ecosystem. You raised a very important point initially, which I think is something that even Harish raised, that whether India needs smartphones in the way smartphones are understood, or we need smarter phones, smarter feature phones, I think that's only time will tell. A lot will also depend on the supply side. If what is called smartphone, if technology can drive prices of those components down to Indian aspiration levels, so then that's one question. The other question is that what does it really take to be smarter? What does it really take for a feature phone to be smarter? So many of those questions are being addressed by people like Dinesh from Qualcomm, many other organizations who are into the chip making side, and I think you will see a lot of evolutionary work happening in this side. So there is no such thing of saying necessarily I have to buy a 15,000, 20,000 rupees smartphone if really I want a very high class experience on whether it's entertainment or information or internet surfing. I think development is happening, and I think a lot more excitement is in store for Indian customers. They'll get their cake and they'll eat it too.
I have a question here. This is more around pricing. Typically, when you build a new product, never seen before, unique products, right? Because the cost of manufacturing, because of the initial costs of design and all that, there is a tendency to price it high. And there's also probably a temptation to price it high because you're unique and the one of a kind. But how long can that be an entry barrier for other competitors who can probably create, if not imitations or improvisations on the product, they can at least start undercutting on the pricing, right? So how do you determine pricing and as a result of value for money?
I'll quickly try and put a 2-minute thing, and we for us obviously, first of all, we see price as an equalizer of value. So price is market driven finally. You could be happy to, you could sort of have a certain, your own chip on your shoulder and think that I'll price it more than what my value is, but you finally in the long run cannot. So finally, at the end of it, market determines the price. Now what you determine as a brand is the value that you create. And that's where you put the bulk of your energy, time, resources, etc. Now, for example, let me take the example of say the Apple iPhone. The Apple iPhone being sold at say $400, $500 or whatever. I mean, our understanding is the BOM cost of that device is around $150, $160. Now, does that mean Apple is fleecing customers? The answer is no. In our understanding, it is Apple has created value around it, and that value may not be lying only in the product. It could be lying in product, it could be lying in imagery, it could be lying in communication, it could be lying in service, it could be lying in many retail experience, actually. I mean, I don't know how many of you may be aware that Apple sells a very large number of its devices from their own Apple store, where the retail experience is perfected to the last T, right? So some total value that they create, that gives them a certain market determined price of $400 or $500. The BOM cost could be still $150 or $160. But yeah, the day Apple stops delivering that value, many of those values start falling. If Apple does not reprice itself, it will be in trouble, in our understanding. Well, that's the way we look at pricing. It is a very obviously, it's far easier said than done. It's a complex thing. You keep iterating, you learn along the way, you do some research to understand what's the right price. So you do all that stuff, etc. But at the end of it, the customer is ruthless, and if after or you've gone into market and customer believes that your price does not truly reflect value, you have no other option but to get down to what is your real value.
Very quickly address this. Pricing is a very interesting issue. In fact, just give two examples, personal example and example of Mazda Miata, which was launched in US. At Harman, we launched a line of Infinity speakers. We had priced it at $2,500 for a pair, so it was like $1.5 lakh. It wasn't doing that well. When we increased the price to $7,500, it sold many more. Okay. So it is not very clear how, it's not a science, but Vishal is exactly right. The customer determines the price. But when you start doing a product development, you have an aspiration, okay? An aspiration as to where you want the product to be priced at and what is the value you are going to offer. Okay, then once you launch the product, the customer decides whether you have offered that value and whether the customer is willing to pay the price. When we launched our speakers, we did a test marketing for 6 months. And in those 6 months, people have sold this entire product, a 5.1 system, cost to the consumer 65,000 rupees. Dealers have sold this for over 1 lakh rupees, okay, to the consumer. So it is the consumer who really decides what the price is, but there's an aspirational value of the brand itself as to where it wants to price the product. So both have to match.
Hi, a question for Lava. I was wondering about your experience around the Indian language domain in terms of phones in Indian languages with the text. What are the issues that you've seen? What about application development around Indian languages. I believe you had some applications on that. How's the customer response been to that? And do you see that as being a determining force or a differentiating force going forward? Or is it just being rejected and no one cares about it?
No, I think you can, at a mass market level, we obviously always get tempted by slicing and dicing further. And there are segments of customers who appreciate, both from a software and hardware side, his own language. For example, in Tamil Nadu, when we launched, we found very lukewarm response till we got into a Tamil keypad. So there is that thing out there. I think touch phones makes it far easier to actually integrate language in a manner which is adaptable across customer segments. We've not started doing very large amount of work yet. On that side, we have a lot of other very, very basic problems that we still struggle with. Maybe Arvind here maybe you can link up with him. He's acutely aware of what we are going about doing in terms of this side. But that's the way. Yeah, surely, I mean, if you're asking me that, do we feel pressures from market to be able to localize language where we are selling? The answer is yes. Answer is yes. But do we have a solution as of now to deliver that in a sustainable way and in a longer term way? Answer is we're still struggling.
Is there a additional cost associated with it that's preventing it?
There is cost. There is a lot more understanding about how we will deliver software inside. So many of those things work on it. From an application development standpoint, I believe there are some very interesting products which are already on the table, which we are evaluating. So we're keenly looking at all of these spaces, but we don't have a solution yet.
Is there any other? How many questions are there? Okay, maybe quickly 2 questions. Yeah.
When I go out, what is the percentage of China mobiles available in India? The question is important to me because when I build applications for mobiles and when I go into the rural market, I find more China mobiles than any of the mobiles where I work, say the Nokia, the Lava, the Micromax, or the Android. I find more China mobiles. When I talk to customers, the customer says, hey, this gives me the real value for money, exactly what you talked to Vishal. So from an app developer space, how do I handle it? What are your thoughts about this? This has been, I have really gone and gotten beaten by the China mobiles. Sure.
Okay, I'll tell you about whether you call it China, whether you call it non-branded or you call it loosely branded, which you can call it in whichever way you want. But worldwide, and we studied, for example, China as a market itself, the loosely branded or unbranded segment of phones go through their own cycle of expansion and then contraction. And in China, for example, 6 years back, what was called Chinese or whether what was called loosely branded, unbranded, was as much as 30% of the entire consumption of mobile phones in China, some 6 years. Today it's less than 10%. What happens is that when the customer starts first time experimenting with what he wants more, he wants more features, he wants something more, etc. He goes about maybe experimenting at a survivable level, at a lower cost level. And that's when he goes about picking up something which is to him a lower risk in terms of the outlay that he's putting behind it. Then as time goes by, he gets to understand the full experience of that brand. And while the first experience of the product is one part, but then the other experience is a postal service and many things that forces him to reconsider. And then in due course of time, you start seeing these loosely branded, unbranded, or whatever you want to call them, they start shrinking in terms of size. India is also happening like that. India, when we launched Lava 3 years back, the Chinese mobile industry per se in India was as much as 26% at that point of time. It's already down, whatever last numbers I picked up, it's already down to some 12%, 13%. So in due course of time, as time goes by, customers get more discerning, they understand more, they understand the full value of the brand and what sits behind as a promise of the brand, and then you see these things sort of dropping off. And that's our understanding. And that's the way we picked out from most other markets that we benchmark. China is one example. We're very close to the way we have sort of consumed. That's our sense on this.
I think we ran out of time. Probably one last question. Yeah.
You mentioned about, somebody asked questions about application development and, challenges from India.
maybe the question to Qualcomm and Lava. What is the potential of application hosting, either by the service provider or the cloud, and delivering the end result or the content to the phone, either by using 3G or SMSs?
Yes, we have the application development framework that we support, and we have the optimization platform that you could use. But Qualcomm as such does not have a strategy at this point to kind of establish an app store where you could port it. We do have app stores in the Brew space, but not on the Android space at this point of time.
No, my question is more about whether the application, do you see from India perspective, the applications would continue to be on the phone, or would they rather be on the cloud or hosted by the service provider and deliver the content or the result to the phone?
Yeah, I probably will take that question. So in India, preloaded apps is popular, right? But at the same time, phones, when you're talking of smart feature phones, not many preloaded applications can keep on adding. There's always a limit because of the memory size and your power on times and all that. So there is a cloud, like India has to start developing the cloud-based technologies. There has to be a back-end app stores. You've seen operators now deploying it. And since India is going to be an open market for some time, so there is all likelihood the other ecosystem also will develop. That means the OEMs, like the Indian OEMs, has to start building the app stores at a certain point in time. And for instance, we have an app store, like Vogue's own app store. Though we are a system integrator, we actually host a lot of applications and provide customized app stores to the various customers as well. So I think we see that trend happening in India. So it's just a matter of time because the data connectivity is just started now, and we need to have affordable devices. We're seeing the trend moving towards that, where the smart feature phones are going to be, now you're able to get it at 7,000. People are saying that we can even get it at a retail price of 6,000 to 5,000. So you will see more of that. And for those type of phones, it's better that it's there in the cloud because, and also you don't know what applications you like. So no point in loading so many applications on the device, right? So allow the consumer to consume what he needs, right? So definitely there's a trend towards that.